Let's see what we can do here. Good morning, all, and welcome to First Church Unitarian. It's not just the people in the room today, it's everybody online as well. Welcome to First Church Unitarian. My name is Lara Hoke, and I have had the honor of serving as a member of your standing committee for the last 3 years. So as of this month, I'm retired. Again, for something else. All right. Before we start our program this morning, I do have a couple of quick announcements. First of all, if you're so inclined, please stop by the Alliance Room. Our General Assembly is coming up, and your delegates want to hear from you. I know one of those delegates is camping in Maine, so you might want to send her a little totem pole. Chris Ursuline is another, and I believe Cindy Malley. No? Lori Lacasio. See, I screwed it up again. It's the way it goes. All right. On the 15th, I can be corrected about this, but I believe we are having our final circle dance in the vestry. Is that right? Well, final for the church season. You'll be back in the fall, I assume, dancing on. All right. And the last thing I'd like to mention is writing postcards for democracy, which, as you know, Linda Kaler and, I'm going to screw this up again, Lynn Courtney, I'm not really awake, are spearheading. They're also sponsoring a pool party on the 29th of June that's for fun and letter writing. And you can read anything else that's of importance in your community matters. There's a lot going on. All right. Lost my gong. Welcome to church.
An excerpt from the News from Home by Ghanaian poet Kofi Anyidoho. To those who hear rumors of civil strife and bushfires and bad harvests at home, and come to me looking for fears and tears, I must say I am tired, very tired, tired of all devotion to death and dying. And I am tired of all these noises of condolence from those who love to look upon the anger of the hungry, nod their head, and stroll back home, worrying and forever worrying about overweight and special diet for dogs and cats. Like an orphan stranded on dunghills of owners of earth, I shall keep my sorrows to myself, folding them with infinite care, corner upon corner, taking pains. The foldings draw circles around hidden spaces where still our hopes grow roots, even in this hour of finite chaos. Let us worship. I'd like to invite Tucker to light our chalice this morning. And as Tucker lights our chalice, please join with me in saying the words of our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. Good morning. I join with Sara in welcoming you here to First Church Unitarian in Littleton, Massachusetts. My name is Lara Hoke, pronouns she, her, and I'm so happy and lucky to be the minister serving this incredible congregation. I want to say that we always welcome the sound of children and babies, so don't worry about that. We all make sounds. And I'm just so glad that you're with us this morning, whether you're here in the sanctuary or with us online, and particularly if this is your first time with us. We're so glad that you found us and decided to take a chance and visit. We cherish your presence here, and we hope to get to know you, the real you, better. Our time here is all the better because you're with us. Our lay pastoral minister today, if you need pastoral care, is Linda Kaler. I know she's here somewhere. There's Linda. So if you need some pastoral care, you could reach out to Linda, or of course to me, or to one of our other lay pastoral ministers, David Butts, Ann Donald, Jan Dustin, and Patty Sardella. Today, I'm going to be talking about the time I spent during sabbatical in Ghana. And this, that I'm wearing, this kaftan, was a wonderful gift from my hosts there. So I'm happy to wear it today. Please join me, if you would, for our first hymn. It's in the teal hymnal, number 1051, We Are. And you'll see the words also on the screen. I invite you to rise in body or spirit.
Can you hear me? Yeah? Okay. So I'm going to read this little story. It's really sweet. Annasi's Golden Pot. There once was a little boy whose name was Kiku, but everyone called him Annasi. Annasi's father, Kojo, picked the nickname. In Ghana, said Kojo, where I was born, everyone knows Annasi, a clever little spider with a sparkle in his eyes. Annasi's eyes were sparkly too, with spider-leg-like lashes. Annasi loved his nickname, and he loved those spidery lashes. He especially loved the traditional tales his parents told at bedtime, stories of adventures and of one little trickster spider. Then, one winter, Annasi had an adventure of his own. From the cold of the city, he flew to the warmth of the beach where his father was born. Of course, Annasi's sister and brother, Ama and Auto, came too. Annasi's Nana was waiting to greet them. Annasi adored his Nana, wise and kind. She had sparkly eyes and spidery lashes as well. Vacation on the beach, what a joy. There were so many things to do. Annasi climbed the coconut tree and drank the cool, sweet water. He hauled in nets with fishermen and helped his Nana cook. Annasi's favorite thing to eat was Nana's red, a stew of beans with fried plantain, the greatest joy of all. Then one day, a stranger appeared. This is, after all, an adventure. Sipping a coconut shaded by palms, Annasi felt legs crawling on his head. 8 skinny legs, to be exact. "Ew!" he cried. "A spider!" "Observant," said the soft and rather mischievous little voice. The spider leapt from Annasi's head and down to his hands. "Allow me to introduce myself." He needed no introduction. "Annasi the spider," said Annasi the boy. "So my bedtime stories were true?" "Traditional stories are always true," the spider answered, laughing. "Nothing lasts as long as the truth, nor travels quite so far." "See that pot?" the spider continued. Annasi looked around them. All he saw were empty shells of coconuts on the ground. "All I see are coconuts," Annasi said, perplexed. The spider merely chuckled. "Observant," he said again. And then he hopped from Annasi's hand and scurried to a shell. "This, my boy, is a golden pot." It was Annasi's turn to laugh. "But that's a coconut shell," Annasi chuckled, showing the spider. "Look." "I didn't say look," the spider said, impatient. "I said see." Annasi turned the shell in his hand, and then indeed he saw the inside of the coconut shell was bright and sparkling gold. The spider winked. "As I said, a golden pot. See?" He crawled up Annasi's leg, which tickled, and onto Annasi's shoulder, from where he could whisper in Annasi's ear, "And now for the fun part, magic." "Close your eyes and repeat these words," the spider instructed Annasi. "Do for me as you do for spider. Fill with what I most desire." And closing his eyes, cupping the pot, Annasi repeated the charm. No sooner had Annasi spoken than the smell of ginger filled his nose. He opened his eyes and saw the pot filled with red stew. The entire shell was golden now, a magic golden pot. "A golden pot for a golden heart," the spider said, and winked. "Just remember, you must share what you love with those you love most." "I will," said Annasi, mouthful of red. But alas, he didn't. In the days that followed, Annasi kept the golden pot by his side, splashing in the ocean, taking a bath, building building castles from sand. Whenever he craved his favorite food, he spoke the spider's charm. Do for me as you do for spider, fill with what I most desire. However, he kept the pot a secret from Amma and Auto, afraid they would steal it. And he didn't even tell Anna. Annasi feasted alone. All he could eat, all for himself, or rather, all by himself. In truth, Annasi grew lonely, hiding from Nana and Amma and Auto. Hiding the golden pot beneath his pillow made his head hurt, not to mention his tummy. Red is made of beans after all. One night, Nana, who, after all, was wise as well as kind, sat on the edge of Anansi's bed, rubbing his aching tummy. When I was young, Nana began. But you're still young, objected Annasi. In spirit, yes, laughed Nana. But when I was also young in body, my parents told me tales about a spider and his pot. The stories were always different, but the lesson was the same. A very sleepy Annasi asked, although he suspected he already knew, what was the lesson? Greed brings grief. Generosity brings joy. In the morning, Annasi found Amma and Auto and showed them the golden pot. What is that? They gasped with wonder. Annasi closed his eyes. Do for me as you do for spider, fill with what I most desire. This time, however, instead of filling with his favorite food, the golden pot filled with Amma's favorite kiwi, then Auto's favorite ice cream. Amma and Auto ate with delight, and Annasi watched delighted. Now he felt something on his neck, 8 skinny legs which tickled. Then he felt something in his heart, generosity, which glowed. You must share what you love, the spider began, and Annasi finished for him. With those you love the most, Annasi said, and laughed with joy.
Thank you, Molly and choir, for that beautiful anthem, which was written by FCU's own Niela Miller. Pretty amazing. Yeah. As many of you know, First Church Unitarian has congregational polity, which means that we make our own decisions. This is our own church, and there are so many gifts that come from that. One of the responsibilities is that we have to rely on our own generosity with our time and talents and treasures when we're able. So in that spirit, if you're able to share some of your treasure today, we will come around the sanctuary with the plate for the offering. For those of you who are with us online, if you wish, you could go to our website, fculittle.org, and look for the yellow donate button. You could either donate online or find the address there if you wish to mail in a check. This morning's offering will now be given and received in grateful appreciation. Please join with me in our community response. We are grateful for the opportunity to give and serve, and grateful for the gifts we have received. May this affirm the ministries of our church community, both within and beyond these walls. Many weeks, a special part of our worship service is the Candles of Caring. This is an opportunity, if you wish, to share a joy or concern that's very important to you this morning with this gathered, beloved community. And if you wish to do so, if you are here in the sanctuary, you can please, if you're able, walk up to the microphone and tell us your name and briefly let us know how we might direct our thoughts or prayers or healing wishes. And if you like, after that, if you wish, we can bring the microphone to you where you sit. And for those of you who are with us on Zoom, you can raise the hand in the reactions area, and we will call on you in turn. Are there any candles this morning? Uh-oh. Okay. Are there any others? No. No, okay. Then I'll ask Bob to light one last candle, and let this represent all the joys and concerns that are with us this morning, but that remain unspoken. Thank you. Please join with me in the spirit of meditation or prayer. Once again, we have come together in love and trust, sharing those cares dearest to us with this gathered, beloved community. Let us hold in our hearts and our prayers those joys and sorrows that were spoken aloud this morning, as well as those that remain unspoken as we share together in a time of sacred silence. Amen, and blessed be. Many of you know that I spent the better part of the month of February in Ghana, volunteering at the McDellar Sons of Grace Preparatory School. It's a school that we have been involved with as a congregation for a while now. In recent years, you've heard from FCU members Susan and Bob and Lynn and Peter and Linda and Larry. Heard them talk about their trips there, and we have at times helped to raise some funds for the school, sometimes with yard sales, sometimes with our Share the Plate Sundays. And it was through their introduction to the school that I became involved and inspired to spend almost a quarter of my sabbatical there. You might recall that our Share the Plate Sunday was for Learning Up, the nonprofit founded by our friends that helps to raise money for the McDellar School. The McDellar School was founded by Mr. Mark Tilla, who is still its headmaster. It was founded and really still operates in many ways on a wing and a prayer. The school does so much to educate students who would otherwise have trouble affording education anywhere else. Before I talk about my experience there in detail, I wanted to share just a little bit about Ghana, because I think most of us in the United States don't know that much about the country. So just a few basics. So next slide. Ghana is a country in West Africa, and you can see from the map its location in the continent. The largest city in Ghana is Accra, which is also the capital. And the southern part of what is now Ghana, where Accra and the Magdala School are, were once kingdoms. And you can do the next slide. There's Ghana. And in the southern part, there were once the kingdoms, the Ashanti Empire, quite famous, and other Akan kingdoms. But in the 15th century, Portugal came to the lands, followed by other European countries. And tragically, many enslaved persons in the American colonies did come from what is now Ghana, enslaved by Europeans and others participating in the transatlantic slave trade. By the 19th century, the British Empire had control of this land and called it the Gold Coast. And eventually, of course, the slave trade stopped, but colonialism and colonial control of the Gold Coast continued until 1957, when Ghana became the first African colony to achieve sovereignty. And if you look at the map, I don't know if you can see a little purple dot to the east of that lake, Lake Volta. That's where the Magdala School is. And Lake Volta is the largest man-made lake in the world, created in the mid-60s. Ghana went on in the 20th century to be a leader in the decolonization efforts in the continent of Africa and a leader in the Pan-African movement generally. And today, Ghana is a country of about 35 million people, about 70% of whom are Christian. There's a sizable Muslim population as well, and there are those who still follow the traditional indigenous religious traditions too. So I wanted to pause just for a moment and listen to Mali play God Bless Our Homeland Ghana, which is their national anthem. So rousing national anthem, I think you can hear some of the pride. My trip to Ghana and the Magdala Sons of Grace School was in the planning for some time. In the fall, the FCU folks who've been there, that I mentioned before, began to meet with me to prepare me for what to expect. And around that same time, I began electronic communication with Mark Tilla, the man who founded the school and is still the headmaster, mostly on WhatsApp. So you can show the next picture. And there you'll see Mark and his then fiancée, now wife, Confidence. Wonderful people. Our FCU friends were really trying to help me envision the journey to come logistically, and they connected me to others with local connections. From the beginning, the plan was that I would stay there and sleep right on campus, hosted graciously by Mark in his home, right there. Our FCU friends, when they visited, stayed in a nearby hotel and came into the school during the day, and they were concerned about how I would handle my living quarters at Mark's place. So they wisely suggested a few accommodations be made before my arrival. I should say that the village closest to the school, called Pondo Torkor, is a very close-knit community, and the living conditions are quite basic or rustic compared to what most of us are used to in this country. Many homes there are more like what we would call shacks or lean-tos. Indoor plumbing is often not present. Sometimes homes have a dirt floor, and people often sleep on mattresses or really just a mat on the floor. I didn't meet anyone who had air conditioning in their home. Fans and ceiling fans were the norm. And remember, we are basically very close to the equator in Ghana, so it is very hot. So next slide. This is a picture I took one morning at about 7 a.m., and it was already 85 degrees, and I was already sweating. So I felt this picture somehow captured the sun and the way it seemed the whole time I was there. So before my arrival, Mark's home, like most homes in the area, had the dirt floor and no real indoor plumbing, and nothing resembling a bed the way that most of us are used to. So I did pay for renovations so that by the time I got there, there was a working shower and toilet and a bed frame and a mattress and a ceiling fan. And all of that cost me in the ballpark of $800, which isn't a trivial amount of money to me, but those are pretty extensive renovations for $800. It gives you some sense of things being less expensive in Ghana. And the good news is those renovations are still there for Mark and Confidence, so I'm glad of that. And thank goodness for those renovations, because the month of February in Ghana is a never-ending heat wave. It is a temperature always in the high 90s, and if you know me well, you know that I don't function very well in the heat. And I don't know if I could have made it without the ceiling fan, to tell you the truth. During the day, there wasn't really much relief from the heat. Sitting in the shade was the best anyone could really do. No one had access to refrigeration at the school, so the water we drank was warm, and I was always hot and sweaty, so I was so grateful for the fan. My hosts were so kind. Mark and Confidence, those you saw in the picture earlier, knew right away that I was uncomfortably hot and did their best to help me out. And the kids, you can show the next slide, the children were just so wonderful. And I think they caught on quickly, too, that I was not in my natural habitat. And you have to know that there were only 2 people older than I am at the school. Those were Mark's parents, who are about 10 and 20 years older than I am. But they were fit and quite used to the temperature, of course. This is a culture where, first of all, there's always physical work to be done, and so generally people stay pretty fit. This is also a culture where elders are revered. This is a culture where pastors and faith leaders are revered. And between Mark and Confidence and the children, I basically never lifted a finger. They wouldn't let me. I would pick something up to carry it, a chair, my guitar case, whatever, and the student would come by and snatch it out of my hands and carry it to my destination. They would have carried me if they could. And I probably would have let them. So for the entire month, nobody called me Lara. I never heard my name for the month. It was strange. Everyone called me either Reverend or Auntie or Mommy or Ma'am. And that was done from the cultural traditions, being respectful. But I did miss being called Lara. I very much appreciated the kindnesses and the shows of respect. And yet, as you might imagine, I felt a little bit pathetic while I was there. Yes, I could have carried the chair and the guitar just fine, but the truth is, I was physically in a hard way compared to everyone there, including Mark's parents. I might have been stronger than the youngest children, but that's about it. So next slide. The woman on the left, that's Mark's mother, who's 10 years older than I am. And you can probably tell she's pretty fit. and just some of the adorable younger kids there. I did get sick once while I was there, something from the food or whatever, some sort of stomach bug, which happened after I'd been there about 10 days. And this sort of thing is sort of expected when you travel to other continents. In fact, your travel kit includes prescription antibiotics for just this sort of event. It did take me a few days to recover from that. And in a way, I never did fully recover, I'm afraid, because from the sickness, I wound up dehydrated, and shortly after that, I wound up with my first episode of what I discovered was heat exhaustion. And I'd never had it before. It turns out that once you have it, you're more prone to it for another month or so. So, unfortunately, I had a few bouts with heat exhaustion the rest of my stay. I wouldn't feel it coming. I would be sitting outside and like the frog in the boiling water, I just wouldn't notice it. But then I'd stand up to do something and everything would go black. And I had to wait for a minute, stay still until the vision came back. And then I'd go to walk and discover that I could just barely walk. And so everyone around was very concerned and helped me, of course. They were very wonderful. And they brought me electrolytes for my water, and it was great how they responded, but it was all very humbling. While I was visiting the McDellar School, they were in the midst of local competitions with other schools in soccer and volleyball and traditions such as the drumming and dancing and so on, marching. So in the mornings, there would be classroom time, the way you might imagine it. It's one school for all ages, sort of kindergarten through 12th grade, more or less. And the next 4 slides will show pretty quickly. That's one of the classrooms teaching math. Next slide. Another one of the classrooms, this was learning some English. Next slide. I think this class was about science, if I remember correctly. Next slide. And this was some of the older kids learning statistics, sort of mathematics. And then finally, the next slide. This is a picture Mark took. It's me with the faculty there. So just to get a sense of kind of what people looked like. So the classrooms mostly were open air, although the classrooms for the older students have walls, thanks largely to the generosity of Learning Up. In most weather, the open air classrooms are okay, but during the rainy season, that can be a problem. So in the mornings, they had their classes, and in the afternoons, they were preparing for the upcoming competitions. I'd like to show you a video now. It's about 3 minutes long, and so it'll help you get a better feel for what it looked like. Footage just for my cell phone. Thank you. As I mentioned, the culture in Ghana is to honor elders and take care of them. The students were incredibly well behaved, and if they were asked or often told to do something, they just did it. There wasn't really any back-talking that I ever heard. And one of the amazing things about the culture, at least at the school and in the village of Pondo Tokor, is that it seemed to be all hands on deck. Many tasks take a lot of work without all the conveniences that we take for granted. So at the school, meals were cooked on an open fire, clothes were washed by hand and put on the line to dry. There was a constant battle against the dirt that blew around, so sweeping was never ending. Chairs and other supplies were carried here and there as the day went on. And the students were an important part of it all. Gathering wood for the fire, going out to harvest some of the food staples that grow right around the campus, washing clothes, sweeping, all of it. If they resented it, I certainly never caught on to that. It's just the way things are done. And though it's a lot of physical work, it does mean that the students, that kids of all ages, are truly important community members. And in that sense, everyone's a part of it. No one gets left behind or left out, which feels so different to what I'm used to. There wasn't a feeling of competition in the air so much as cooperation. And absolutely everything is shared. I never experienced something quite like that before, such a complete community feeling. So what did I do at the McDellar School beyond having heat exhaustion and taking photos and such? I did create a website and some social media for the school, so there was that. Initially, I hoped that maybe I would teach some music, but the days were so full with the training for the competitions that there really wasn't much space to add in new classes. The main teaching function that I had really was to help students with their English, which I did quite a lot of. In the region of the school, the primary language is Iwa, and the teachers at the schools all speak English well, and the classes are taught in English, but the students still are very much learning the English language. So that was one role I could help with. Another role I served, which I didn't see coming, although maybe I should have, was I wound up really as an unofficial chaplain for the school while I was there. Now, Mark is an elder of the Pentecostal church, and though he hasn't been officially ordained, he's an excellent preacher. He's also very musically gifted and writes and sings songs that are used in worship. He's good at all sports, and really he's one of those people who's good looking and just kind of good at everything. But I like him anyway. He's a sweetheart of a guy, and he really does have the gifts, all the gifts for ministry he would need to be a chaplain. But that's not his role there. He's in a kindly but authoritarian role there. I, on the other hand, it's just not in my cultural background or my nature to tell kids what to do too much. I mean, I'll step up and take charge when I really have to. But I mostly can just let kids be kids. I have that luxury. And the students pretty quickly figured out that I was a good listener, that I wasn't going to give them chores to do, and that I was going to ask them questions about themselves and really be interested in their answers. You can show the next, oh no, this is the slide, this is perfect. So these were some of the kids I got to know really well. I became an unofficial chaplain, as I say, to some of the kids, and especially the kids who live there at the school full-time, either because their families live on the islands in Lake Volta, or because they're orphaned or partially orphaned. And these are just a handful of the kids in this slide that I got to know really well, and miss them very much. Sometimes the kids would want to sing with me, and that was fun. They taught me at least as many songs as I taught them. And I think those interactions helped them to feel appreciated in a different way, which felt good to me, and I think it felt good to them too. The other thing I did while I was there that I hadn't really anticipated was helping Mark in a different way. What I discovered is that for people with so little money and so few material resources, everything is very moment to moment, go with the flow, hand to mouth. And so, as much as I think you all know that I'm not exactly a financial wizard, I was able to teach Mark the basics of budgeting. At first I was surprised that Mark didn't know about budgeting, but then again, why would he? Because when your existence is always hand to mouth, there is no budgeting. So I helped him to think in terms of predictable money coming in and predictable expenses, and about creative ways to fill the gap, which is always there. And I think and hope that that was helpful, and also starting to think about a 5-year plan. And finally, the role I had that wasn't something I had anticipated at all was it seemed that there was some sort of prestige, for lack of a better word, in having me around. Particularly with my status as clergy, but also I think because I was white, although that was never said as such. It seemed that they were happy to let other schools in the area know that I was there, and to let the parents know that I was there and so forth. And they sort of showed me off, which I'm not used to being showed off. So that was a new experience. The truth is, in that region of Ghana, there are almost no white people. In fact, I was the only white person I saw all month other than coming in and out of Accra at the airport. And so I'm pretty sure I was the only white person they were seeing too. So everywhere I went in the Pondo region, people would point at me and yell, "Yewu, Yewu," which means white person. And people would come and stare, and I'd kind of give them the Queen's wave. So yeah, white person. So I was, for starters, a curiosity, a rare sight. But in the context of school and academia, I believe the assumption was that I was a learned person. And I suppose I sort of was. Not many people in that region get to go to university after all. And it seemed like something about that was supposed to rub on to the students and have a good effect. I did talk to the kids about what they wanted to do when they grew up, and to a person, they automatically envisioned that they would get married and have children. Every single kid I spoke with, first thing they said, they had trouble imagining going to university because where would they get the money? Not that they didn't want to go. Scholarships seem to be scarce, or at least not well known about, so that's something I'm continuing to try to suss out. None of the kids ever imagine owning a car. No one they know owns one. They had trouble imagining that most adults in the United States own a car or drive a car. All they know about the United States is that it's a mixed race country, there are lots of white people here, and that there's a lot of money. And to them, I was rich, full stop, and relative to them, I am rich. And I am not, by any stretch of the word, financially rich or even wealthy by US standards. They are, of course, rich with talents and abilities and intelligence and community, but they simply have very little money, and it does matter. I felt convicted when I came across the poem of which I shared an excerpt for our call to worship, the words of Kofi Anyidoho, who wrote, "I'm tired of all the noises of condolence from those who love to look upon the anger of the hungry nod their head and stroll back home, worrying and forever worrying about overweight and special diet for dogs and cats. Meanwhile, literally when I was in Ghana, as a matter of fact, our dog Diggory actually went on a special diet for his high blood sugar. So what do you do with that? It's unbearable that the world has so much disparity of wealth. It's utterly unfair that some of us have it so easy, as I do and always have had, really, when others live with so little and such challenging conditions every moment of every day. And I will continue to give to the school to help raise funds when I can and hopefully find some grants. The need is so great. If you could show the next slide. This is not a Share the Plate Sunday, but if you feel so inclined, you can today or anytime make a donation to Learning Up, the tax-deductible organization here that our friends founded, and it goes to the McDellar School. And you could either, at that link, the /donate link, mcdellar.org/donate, you can go and either pay online through PayPal or find an address where you could send in a check. Mark, the founder of the school, is also very open to more guests from FCU. So if you're interested in making your own trip, please let me or one of our friends know. Mark believes that we inspire the kids when we visit. And I don't know if that's true, but I promise you that the kids will inspire you if you visit. I am so excited to have made this connection. I'm so excited the church has this ongoing connection with the McDellar School. May we find ways to be of greater service to these incredible, hardworking students. Hopes can indeed grow roots. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Our closing hymn is actually, I'm told, written by Ghanaians. It's number 1020, Wo Ya Ya. And the words will also be on the screen, and I invite you to rise in body or spirit. The teal hymnal. For our closing words, if you're comfortable and the person next to you is comfortable, you can hold hands or touch shoulders or elbows or feet or whatever works for you. And you can hold up your hands as well and simply feel the energy between us and those who are with us online. Grief brings greed. Generosity brings joy. There is so much grace all around us. Gifts from the universe, gifts from the earth, and gifts from each other, freely given. I experienced so much grace in Ghana. May we continue to grow in generosity and joy and grace. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Peace.
Hello, remote people.
Old and disappeared.
They probably make fun of you.
There they
Now they're
are.
back. See if you got-
Yeah,
Yeah, you made it.
we are here. Hey there.